In the great expanse of the Arab world, from the golden dunes of the empty quarter to the coastal souks of the Levant, wealth has never been the final destination. It has always been the byproduct of a far deeper pursuit. The story of Arab billionaire families does not begin with oil rigs or skyscrapers. It begins with the unshakable values that predate luxury: endurance, vision, dignity, and legacy. These families did not merely inherit fortune, they inherited purpose. Before petrochemicals flowed and high-rise cities glittered against the night sky, the early Arab merchants navigated unforgiving landscapes. They traded dates, spices, pearls, and textiles across unforgiving deserts and seas, not as opportunists but as custodians of family honor. Their success was never instant. It was crafted, preserved, and passed like sacred trust, brick by brick, handshake by handshake. In a time when wealth could not be stored in vaults, it was stored in reputation. And reputation was protected with more ferocity than gold. These ancient families were not simply business people, they were the moral fabric of their communities. They financed water wells, hosted travelers, employed entire tribes, and settled disputes with wisdom rather than weapon. The wealth they built was quiet, generational, and grounded in the belief that a man's name was worth more than his assets. Their legacy was defined not by the size of their holdings, but by the consistency of their character. In the modern world, luxury is often mistaken for success. But for the Arab elite who built enduring wealth, luxury was never the goal. It was a reflection of security earned after decades of hardship. A family Majlis adorned with carpets from Tabriz, or a falcon loft resting on the edge of the desert, was not a display of extravagance. It was a symbol of rootedness. The luxury came only after legacy had been secured. Even today, those who rise too fast without anchoring themselves in the soil of their forebears often find that their empires are brittle. The oldest billionaire families in the Arab world understand this. Their success is built upon continuity, not acceleration. Long before they were signing international deals in London, Singapore, or New York, their grandfathers were negotiating land ownership, tribal alliances, and trade routes. And every deal carried with it an understanding. The family name was always at stake. In the Islamic tradition, wealth is seen not only as a test, but a responsibility. This belief shaped the thinking of the early patriarchs of these families. Zakat, the compulsory charity of Islam, was not just a pillar of faith, but a way of life. Business was never separated from ethics. Profits were never made in the absence of accountability. This is why some of the most successful family enterprises across the Gulf, the Levant, and North Africa are still run with a sense of social duty. They fund hospitals, build mosques, and create endowments, not to polish their image, but to honor their ancestors. The legacy-driven mindset also manifests in how these families educate their children. Sons and daughters are not simply heirs to a fortune, they are heirs to a history. They are taught the names of tribal leaders, the sacrifices of forefathers, and the stories of resilience that gave birth to the wealth they now steward. In these families, identity is the first lesson, and entitlement is a disease. Many heirs are sent to prestigious universities not for status, but to bring back knowledge to strengthen the family's standing. Education is seen not as a privilege, but as an obligation. While the world watches the towers of Dubai, Riyadh, or Doha rise into the clouds, few understand the silent foundations beneath them. These foundations were laid generations ago, not with cranes or concrete, but with contracts signed by hand, with trust built over coffee, and with oaths taken beneath the desert moon. The untold story of these billionaire families is that they are not just rich, they are rooted. Their legacy predates their bank accounts. It lives in the scrolls of their family histories, in the calligraphy of old agreements, and in the dusty ledgers of forgotten trades. It echoes in the stories told by grandmothers to children at dusk, in the sand-worn photographs of forefathers standing proudly beside their caravans, and in the land deeds passed down like relics. When they build today, whether it's a financial district or a global logistics hub, they are not just expanding empires, they are continuing a legacy that began when wealth was measured in camels and character. In every step forward, they are looking backward, not to dwell in the past, but to remain tethered to it, because to them the true inheritance is not in vaults, but in values. In the world of immense fortunes and rising empires, there exists a hidden pillar that silently holds the weight of generational wealth in the Arab world: family unity. To the outsider, the wealth of Arab billionaire families may appear to be the product of mere opportunity or regional advantage, but to those who understand the heart of the Arab tradition, it becomes clear that wealth without family is vulnerable, and empire without harmony is unsustainable. The enduring strength of these families lies not in their capital alone, but in the cohesion that binds bloodlines, values, and vision. Family is not a fragmented notion in the Arab world. It is the nucleus of identity. It determines not only one's name, but one's place in society, one's obligations, and one's legacy. For the Arab billionaire family, unity is not optional. It is existential. The greatest wealth passed down from the founding generation is not a fortune but a formula, the understanding that loyalty to the family guarantees the survival of the enterprise. This understanding begins early in life. It is not taught through instruction, but through exposure to tradition, repetition, and reinforcement in every moment of the family's shared life. In these families, business is not separated from kinship. It is woven into the fabric of daily life. The father who leads a multinational conglomerate may also be the same man who gathers his sons and nephews for Friday prayers, evening discussions, or desert retreats. The business meeting might happen in the same majlis where elders tell stories of the past. Decisions are made not in isolation but in consensus. No matter how vast the family becomes, the structure is preserved. Elders lead with moral authority, younger members are mentored with patience, and disputes are handled with dignity. This model of governance mirrors the tribal councils of old, where wisdom was prized above rank, and unity above ego. The strength of this model is not simply emotional, it is strategic. In many Arab billionaire families, the holding company may involve dozens, sometimes hundreds, of shareholders from within the same extended family, and yet fragmentation is rare. This is not by coincidence. It is the result of well-designed family constitutions, regular communication, and conflict resolution mechanisms embedded in tradition. Unlike many business dynasties around the world that splinter by the third generation, Arab families often endure because they plan for unity as diligently as they plan for profit. The Arab world recognizes that division is the beginning of decline. This belief is reinforced by cultural memory. Across the region's history, tribes that split were weakened, cities that fell were betrayed by internal discord, and wealth that was hoarded became a curse. The billionaire families of today carry this awareness like a torch. They know that their names are not brands, they are trusts. To betray that trust through greed or disloyalty is to undo the very foundation their ancestors bled to build. The importance of unity becomes most visible during moments of transition, the death of a patriarch, the handing over of leadership, or the decision to expand into new markets. In such moments, lesser families fracture. But the strong ones, those grounded in unity, move as one. This is where their real power is revealed. It is not in their portfolio, but in their ability to survive turbulence without tearing themselves apart. Many of these families hold internal councils where cousins meet annually to align vision, resolve disputes, and reinforce the values of cooperation. These are not casual gatherings, they are rituals of continuity. Women, too, play a vital role in sustaining unity. The matriarchs are often the quiet guardians of family peace. It is in their living rooms that misunderstandings are softened, in their kitchens that brothers reconcile over meals, and in their hearts that generations are tethered to their roots. While the public may see the patriarch as the face of the empire, it is often the mother, the aunt, or the grandmother who is the soul of the legacy. Their ability to nurture trust and preserve bonds is no less powerful than any contract or boardroom strategy. The modern world presents many temptations to fracture: ambition, entitlement, outside influence, and changing social structures. But the Arab billionaire family resists this by embracing its heritage while adapting its methods. They send their children abroad to study, but insist they return with humility. They build global businesses, but ensure their family name remains associated with generosity and integrity. They expand across continents, but anchor their values in one unshakable truth: unity is not just protection, it is power. In the face of complexity, they simplify. In the face of division, they consolidate. And in the face of changing times, they remember that empires are not built by individuals, but by families who refuse to let pride overpower purpose. Within the towering structures of modern Arab wealth, behind the polished glass of corporate offices and the opulence of family estates, lies a quieter, more powerful force that guides decision making, shapes leadership, and sustains continuity: faith. For Arab billionaire families, faith is not a ceremonial accessory or a relic of tradition. It is the compass by which every generation measures its actions. It exists not only in prayer halls and mosques, but in contracts, boardrooms, philanthropic decisions, and daily conduct. It is the unseen thread that holds together vast empires with the weight of moral responsibility and divine accountability. From the earliest days of the Islamic world, wealth was never divorced from ethics. In fact, Islam was one of the first systems to provide a comprehensive framework on commerce and finance, not as a means of self-indulgence, but as a means of service and justice. The concept of halal earnings, fair trade, honest measurement, and avoidance of exploitation is deeply embedded in the Quran and Hadith. These principles were not philosophical, they were practical, and they formed the foundation of what later became some of the most resilient business dynasties in the Arab world. Arab billionaire families, particularly those whose fortunes span generations, often trace their founding patriarchs to a time when wealth was measured in trust as much as in goods. Those patriarchs did not build fortunes solely through skill. They did so by being known as trustworthy, God-fearing men. Their names carried weight not because of their balance sheets, but because of their uprightness. This reputation for honesty and God-consciousness became their greatest asset. As their families grew and their businesses expanded, they carried this inheritance of faith into every transaction. One of the most profound ways faith manifests in these families is through the principle of zakat. It is not a donation, not a charitable option. It is an obligation. The Quran commands those who are capable to give a portion of their wealth annually to those in need. For billionaire families, this often translates into tens of millions given annually, not for recognition, but because their faith demands it. Zakat is a purification, not just of wealth, but of the heart. It is a mechanism that constantly reminds the wealthy that their riches are a trust from God, not a personal entitlement. Beyond zakat, the ethos of Islamic finance plays a significant role in shaping the practices of these families. Many of them structure their investments to avoid riba interest, favoring instead profit, and loss-sharing models that reflect mutual risk and ethical transparency. These are not just compliance measures, they are expressions of belief. They represent a desire to align material success with spiritual integrity, to earn in a way that is not only legal but pleasing to God. Faith also defines how these families interact with their employees, partners, and the broader community. The emphasis on fairness, on fulfilling contracts, on treating workers with dignity, all of these come not from public pressure or corporate policy, but from religious duty. In the Islamic tradition, a worker must be paid before the sweat dries from his forehead. This teaching resonates deeply in family-run enterprises where respect for human dignity is seen as a reflection of one's fear of divine accountability. The family unit itself is protected and elevated by faith. Islam prioritizes the family as the cornerstone of society, and Arab families uphold this model with both pride and precision. Marriages are carefully considered, family disputes are resolved with guidance from Islamic principles, and children are raised with a spiritual education that rivals their academic one. Wealth may cross continents, but values remain at home. Many family councils begin meetings with a prayer or recitation of the Quran, not as ritual, but as a reminder of responsibility. Decisions affecting millions of dollars are approached with humility, aware that all planning is subject to the will of the Creator. The concept of barakah, divine blessing, is central to their worldview. It is not enough to accumulate. What matters is whether the wealth brings peace, unity, and goodness. Families that have seen material growth but spiritual emptiness often speak privately about a loss of barakah. And families that operate with sincerity, fairness, and faith often report outcomes far beyond their expectations. To them, success is not purely a function of strategy or intelligence. It is the result of God's favor, earned through discipline and sincerity. Faith also gives these families resilience in times of crisis. Markets may crash, political tides may shift, but the stability that comes from belief does not waver. In times of loss, they are reminded that wealth comes and goes by the decree of the Almighty. In times of gain, they are reminded to be grateful and humble. This mindset is not weakness, it is power. It prevents arrogance, curbs recklessness, and builds the type of long-term thinking that is rare in a world dominated by short-term gains. Even as the younger generations embrace technology, global markets, and new modes of business, the spiritual foundations remain untouched. They may wear different clothes, speak multiple languages, and invest in industries their grandfathers never imagined, but they continue to recite the same prayers, honor the same sacred texts, and hold themselves accountable to the same Creator. This continuity is what sustains them when others falter. It is not simply religion, it is the architecture of their identity, the quiet force behind the world's loudest empires. In the ever-evolving landscape of global commerce, technology, and culture, the Arab billionaire families have demonstrated a rare and refined skill, the ability to adapt without losing themselves. Their journey from modest trading caravans to multinational corporations has not been a straight line nor a sudden leap. It has been a carefully measured ascent rooted in cultural awareness, spiritual conviction, and strategic flexibility. Unlike many wealthy families across the world who risk cultural erosion with each new generation, these families have preserved their Arab identity while navigating the tides of globalization. Their secret lies not in resisting change, but in mastering the art of selective adaptation. This balance between tradition and transformation is visible in every corner of their empires. In their boardrooms, modern technology, artificial intelligence, and global consulting firms coexist with values passed down from tribal elders and religious scholars. The latest business models from Silicon Valley are considered and applied, but not blindly. They are filtered through a cultural lens that prioritizes honor, reputation, and long-term harmony over short-term profit. These families are not afraid to evolve, but they are unwilling to dissolve the very foundations that define them. Many of the most successful Arab billionaires were among the first in their generation to send their children abroad to study. They understood that future leadership would require knowledge of the international language of finance, law, and innovation, but their objective was never for their children to return as Western imitators. It was for them to return as modernized leaders deeply rooted in Arab identity. These young heirs were groomed to walk into Ivy League universities wearing the humility of their lineage, and to return home with tools, not replacements, for their inherited wisdom. Fluency in global systems did not require forgetting local stories. This approach has shaped not only education but also investment. Arab billionaire families have become major players in global markets, from tech startups in Europe to real estate in North America to logistics hubs in Southeast Asia. Yet their expansion is often accompanied by a kind of cultural diplomacy. Whether building luxury hotels in Paris or medical research centers in Singapore, they ensure their projects reflect not only excellence but the values of hospitality, dignity, and discretion that have long defined Arab leadership. Their presence is global, but their posture remains distinctly Arab. Language is another powerful symbol of this duality. While the younger members of these families are fluent in English, French, Mandarin, or any language demanded by global business, they often speak Arabic at home in family councils and during key business negotiations in the region. Arabic is not just a language, it is a carrier of values, a reminder of roots. In a world where language is often the first casualty of assimilation, these families fiercely protect their mother tongue as the living soul of their heritage. Architecture, too, becomes a canvas for this philosophy. Their homes and headquarters may incorporate modern design, smart technology, and eco-conscious materials, but they still feature courtyards, mashrabiyah screens, majlis seating areas, and Islamic motifs that connect the present with the past. This aesthetic fusion is not simply about taste. It's a visual declaration that tradition can stand with modernity without submitting to it. It reflects the belief that true sophistication is not in abandoning the old for the new, but in harmonizing both with elegance and intent. Even in the digital space, this synthesis continues. Many of these families have embraced social media not to seek popularity, but to control narrative. They share carefully curated glimpses into their philanthropic initiatives, cultural events, and educational achievements, not for vanity, but to show that tradition is not silence. The digital realm becomes a new desert through which they travel, this time on signals instead of camels, but always with a compass fixed on legacy. When faced with Western business culture that often glorifies individualism, disruption, and speed, the Arab billionaire families have chosen to uphold collective responsibility, continuity, and patience. They do not always rush to be first. They aim to be lasting. They do not boast of breaking rules. They pride themselves on understanding the deeper reasons behind rules. This mindset allows them to collaborate across cultures while maintaining their own integrity. It is a leadership style that surprises many outsiders who expect either rigid conservatism or complete westernization, but instead encounter a model that is fluid yet firm, progressive yet principled. Perhaps the most striking example of adaptation without assimilation lies in their ability to navigate global crises. Whether economic downturns, political instability, or pandemics, these families have responded not with panic, but with perspective. Their faith reminds them that hardship is part of life. Their culture teaches them to consult widely and act wisely, and their business experience gives them the discipline to remain calm under pressure. They adapt to circumstances, but never at the cost of their character. For them, modern tools are extensions, not replacements, of ancient wisdom. This ethos shapes how they raise the next generation. Children are taught not only to use the latest technologies, but to sit with their grandparents and learn the stories that shape the family's identity. They may play with augmented reality, but they are also expected to understand real history, the kind that is not found in textbooks but in family archives and oral tradition. They grow up in two worlds but with one compass. Their inheritance is not just measured in shares and properties, but in values that have survived deserts, wars, markets, and migrations. In the realm of immense fortune and global visibility, where reputations can be bought and images manufactured overnight, Arab billionaire families have long chosen a different path, one rooted not in the glare of cameras, but in the quiet transformation of lives. For them, wealth is not measured by headlines or online impressions, but by impact that endures beyond a generation, beyond a signature, beyond a single lifetime. The foundation of their influence has never been shaped by how loudly the world applauds, but by how deeply their actions ripple through society. Their empires rise not on marketing, but on meaning. In a world driven by speed, spectacle, and social media metrics, these families often operate with striking discretion. Their philanthropy is not a public relations strategy, it is a duty, often carried out behind closed doors. Hospitals bear their names not because they demanded it, but because their contributions reshaped healthcare access for entire regions. Schools, orphanages, and scholarship programs have quietly emerged under their patronage, not as vanity projects, but as part of a larger belief that wealth must serve. They understand that fortune without purpose is a burden. Their measure of success is not personal luxury but public benefit. This belief is deeply rooted in culture and faith. The Arabic concept of sadaqah jariyah, a form of ongoing charity, drives their long-term thinking. They are not interested in one-time gifts or symbolic donations. They think in legacies, a medical research facility that saves lives for decades, an educational initiative that breaks cycles of poverty, a water project that sustains a village for generations. These are not announcements, they are responsibilities. They do not just write checks, they build futures. The public often sees the grandeur, private jets, fleets of luxury cars, palatial residences, but the families themselves know that true grandeur lies elsewhere, in the soft-spoken boy who received a scholarship and became a surgeon, in the widowed mother who found shelter in a housing initiative funded years ago, in the unemployed youth who discovered opportunity in a foundation's entrepreneurial program. These silent victories, these individual transformations, are not celebrated with press releases, but they are carefully tracked within the family as real indicators of success. The concept of amana, or trust, is central to how these families view their wealth. They do not consider themselves owners of riches, but stewards. They are caretakers of resources granted by the Almighty, and their responsibility is to use those resources wisely, fairly, and generously. Their names may be engraved in gold, but they are more concerned with how those names are remembered in the hearts of their people. They understand that an empire built on image will vanish with the next scandal, but an empire built on impact becomes part of the nation's memory. In their business dealings as well, impact outweighs optics. Many have turned down highly profitable ventures that conflicted with their values, choosing instead to invest in projects that align with ethical, environmental, or societal benefit. Some have launched initiatives focused on sustainable energy, clean water, or agricultural innovation, not just because it's fashionable, but because it addresses real needs in the region. They are less interested in headlines and more focused on heritage, the kind of heritage that future generations will point to with pride, not apology. Their internal family councils often include discussions about what kind of legacy is being created, not just how much profit is being earned. The younger generation, brought up with global exposure and elite education, are reminded constantly that they are inheriting not only businesses but a moral framework. Their wealth gives them access to power, but their values give them clarity about how to use it. It is not uncommon for family members to spend time in the field, visiting schools, clinics, or development projects supported by their wealth, grounding their perspective and reinforcing the importance of service. Even in branding and public identity, these families exercise restraint. Where others might build brands on flamboyance or celebrity endorsements, Arab billionaire families often focus on excellence, consistency, and trust. Their companies are known for reliability more than for showmanship. Their word in the business world often holds more value than any logo because it comes with a legacy of honor and results. Their reputation is not curated, it is earned. When crises strike, whether natural disasters, economic collapses, or humanitarian emergencies, these families often mobilize quickly, not to gain attention, but to fulfill their role. Their first question is not, "What will the media say?" but "What can we do to help?" Their teams are structured not only for profit-making, but for rapid response. In many cases, they have quietly prevented economic disasters or social unrest through timely interventions and strategic generosity. The focus on impact over image also shapes how they engage with political power. They understand that influence should be used with caution and wisdom. Instead of chasing the spotlight, they maintain strategic alliances, working behind the scenes to guide policy, fund development, and uplift communities. Their influence is not in the volume of their voice, but in the effectiveness of their vision. Decision makers seek their counsel not because of their visibility, but because of their proven ability to deliver real, lasting change. This quiet power, this deliberate choice to prioritize substance over spectacle, defines their leadership. It creates a legacy not only in ledgers and properties, but in human capital, in knowledge creation, in community resilience. Their true wealth is reflected not in the stock exchange, but in the lives they touch, the futures they build, and the values they uphold even when no one is watching. In a world increasingly driven by noise, speed, and appearances, the story of Arab billionaire families stands apart, not for its extravagance, but for its depth. These are not merely tales of wealth accumulation or market dominance. They are narratives carved from centuries of resilience, bound by faith, elevated through unity, and guided by a purpose far greater than profit. From the scorched sands where their ancestors traded with integrity, to the global cities where their enterprises now flourish, these families have mastered the art of building without forgetting. They have adapted to new worlds without surrendering their own. They have stood firm in the winds of modernity, not by resisting change, but by shaping it through their values. Their strength lies not just in what they own, but in what they preserve: legacy, character, and a vision that sees wealth not as an end, but as a tool for enduring good. In silence they move nations. In service they define power, and in every generation they prove that true greatness is not in being seen, but in being remembered with honor,